Hello, I'm Conan O'Brien. Welcome to Serious Jibber-Jabber. And I am sitting here with one of the funniest men on the planet Earth ever.
Let me amend that. Looking. Funniest. Looking.
One of the funniest looking men ever. Mr. Mel Brooks. He's written and directed numerous classic comedy films, including The Producers, Blazing Saddles, and Young Frankenstein. He single-handedly changed Broadway with the theater production of The Producers, and he co-created one of my all-time favorite television shows, Get Smart. Mel, this is a dream for me. Thanks for being here.
Wake up.
Wake up, Mel.
Yeah.
Wake up.
Now, this is, you're a pleasure. You're easy. I want to apologize for coming on your show with my white jacket. They don't like that on television. My black shirt, my white jacket. Bringing out my own folding chair. And being on the right, you're not used to swiveling.
But I loved it. It was different. I love it when someone changes it up. You came out.
I sat on the other side of it.
And you said, I don't want to sit on this side. I always have to sit on that side when I do a talk show. And you sat on that side.
Yeah.
And it made me use a different part of my brain
that
has never been used,
right.
I don't think, since childhood. But you know what was nice about that night is we get a young audience. You walk out, standing ovation.
Amazing. Amazing.
No, not amazing.
I
knew that would happen.
Yeah.
But your work and what you've done endures. You have these kids that they don't know so much. They don't know who Jimmy Carter is.
Yeah.
They love your work. That's got to feel good.
It's very nice. I go into, like, I don't know, a young area like the mall and, the promenade and in Santa Monica, and there'd be a bunch of young kids, and sometimes they scream, "Spaceball rules!" I mean,
Isn't that?
It's very nice,
Spaceballs, my son, Beckett, who's 7, loves Star Wars, and I showed him Spaceballs.
Well, I mean,
he's crying, and he never stopped laughing at the Rick Moranis giant Darth Vader helmet, which is a sight gag that works every time. I mean, I'm an adult.
Yeah.
Rick leaves frame.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've laughed. He comes back in with the helmet. I'm laughing again. It's such a stupid idea, and it's so brilliant.
It was a funny, big, dumb, funny idea, and it worked. It was kid stuff.
Well, let me ask you. It's you. When you came on the show, we were talking a little bit about growing up in Brooklyn, and we didn't get to talk about this. But when you were a kid, I've heard that you thought comedy was Jewish.
I did.
You thought comedy was Jewish. You didn't think a Gentile could be funny?
I don't think they got it.
Yeah.
I thought Gentiles were nice, more or less. I mean, the whole area that I grew up in, Williamsburg, tenements, stoops, was all full of Jews. There was just Jews everywhere. You take a wrong step, you step on a Jew. It was it was terrible.
These are things you can say that I can't say.
Yeah.
I can't walk into a neighborhood and go, Jews everywhere.
Yeah, right.
I get in trouble. Yeah. You get to say it.
Right. But they'd spot you, but because no Jew has red hair and is tall as you. But, and every once in a while, some Italians or Irish or some weird creature, would drift by, and you'd hear an old Jewish woman say, "Give them something, help them," because they were so Gentile. They were so strange to us. They were, aliens. And
it was like a unicorn to you walked through if you saw a Gentile. It was a strange creature.
I mean, Williamsburg was totally Jewish.
So did you? I grew up one of 6 kids in an Irish Catholic family. I grew up in the early years thinking comedy was Irish until I learned the truth, which is that some of us are funny. It's mostly the Jews. You guys have done well. You've done well.
Between Juno and the Paycock, Sean O'Casey.
Yeah.
Just between Beckett and maybe Yates. I mean, when I discovered that these were all Irish writers, James Joyce, the best fucking writers in the world, and they were not one of them was a Jew. I had a nervous breakdown. I did. I mean, I cried for about a month, you know.
Yeah.
I was only restored by, I don't know, when they told me Modigliani was a Jew. I said, oh, great. He's a great painter. Oh, thank you for that. You know, it's nice.
It's like Sandy Koufax.
Yeah, Jews know Jews, you know. It's so silly, but they do. They know, you know, Zero Mostel knew all the Jewish Italian painters, you know.
He knew his kind, yeah.
Yeah, he knew his kind. It was amazing.
Funny family? Did you come from a naturally funny family?
I was the youngest of four. Yeah, kind of good-natured. My father died when I was only 2. My mother raised 4 boys. I mean, if there's a heaven, she got there. She raised 4 little boys from like 2 to 10.
Single mom.
Yeah, single mom. My Aunt Sadie helped out a great deal. She brought homework, you know, like bathing suit sashes and big bags of them. And my mother would, from about 10 at night, when she put us, when we were sleeping, to bed, she would reverse with a steel rod. I don't know if this makes any sense. These thin, snake-like satin sashes that were stitched on the wrong side, and she'd get them on the right side, and she'd turn them over, and she'd refill the bags with the correct stitching hidden in the bathing suit sashes. Then Sadie would take them back the next day to her factory where they were used, you know, in the machines.
So did you grow up thinking this is what I'm going to be doing this when
I knew.
I'm older?
I lived in 365 South 3rd Street, which is one of the tenements in Williamsburg, in South Williamsburg. North became very chic recently. But I knew I was headed for the garment center. I just knew. I was like, it was destiny. Everybody in those tenements, it was like a sci-fi movie. We were all robotically destined to end up on 7th Avenue, either cutters or shipping clerks or sometimes salesmen. But we were all heading for the garment center, which was the real industry in New York.
So how did you get from you're headed to the garment industry into show business? When did you know? When did you get the bug? When did you know this is what I have to do?
I know
comedy.
It was kind of like a giant mistake, you know, that happened. We had in our neighborhood, we had a celebrity. We had an actor. His name was Don Appel. He later wrote This Too Shall Pass, a wonderful play about racial prejudice. And he also produced on television the Vaughn Monroe Show. Mm-hmm. Racing with the Moon. You've never heard it. You're too young for Vaughn Monroe. But
oh, I'll catch up.
Yeah,
I want to know more about Vaughn
Monroe. You got to look him up. He wasn't a bad singer. He wasn't great, but you know. But Don was in a play on Broadway called Native Son with a great actor called Canada Lee, who was it was a beautiful play, and Don was one of the stars, Don Appel, of Native Son on Broadway, and he'd come home every night. And a few of us, 2 or 3 of us, would stay up and wait for him. He didn't get there till 11:30, till, you know, sometimes midnight. And we'd be in Mr. Shanus, that was the grocery man's, milk box, waiting for him because we knew he'd show up at the milk box to tell us what happened that night, if somebody died in the audience or coughed or whatever.
Yeah.
And he'd regale us with stories of makeup and backstage and who put out which chorus girl, you know.
He would tell you, your kids.
He'd tell you everything. And we were thrilled. And there were only 2 of us, Joe Gavanter and me, and we decided that's where we're going. We're going backstage. We're gonna put on makeup. We're gonna entertain. Well, Don Appel was also, in the summertime, a social director, and he worked at the Avon Lodge. Sid Caesar was one of the musicians. He played a tenor sax.
That's right.
And Don, when they weren't playing, they were kidding around, and Don spotted the latent, nascent comedy in Sid Caesar. And brought him along. And anyway, he got me a job at, I don't think every place in the mountains, in the Borscht Belt or the mountains or the Catskills was called Lodge, but he got me a job. He worked at the Avon Lodge, and he got me a job at the Butler Lodge. Rowboat tender, busboy, and utility actor. In case somebody died, really got very sick.
Get the guy who's manning the rowboat.
Get the guy, yeah. call the kid who's doing the rowboats. So they did once. They said, the district attorney, the guy who's playing the district attorney, we were doing a play up at Butler Lodge, called Uncle Harry. I think it's a British play. And there was a DA. Uncle Harry has killed somebody. And the DA, played by Burt Reed, a very good actor, but for some reason, he fell in a hole. This is the truth. He was walking. He didn't see the hole.
Nobody really falls into a hole.
Yeah, he fell in a hole. And he fell in a hole. He banged himself up, and he couldn't do the show that night. So they called me. Now, the district attorney, Burt was about, 28 or 30. And the district attorney was supposed to be about 70. And I was about 14 and a half, maybe 15. And they said, do you think you could do it? I said, there, Harry. Please sit down, relax, have a glass of water, and tell me in your own words, what exactly do you remember? I knew every line in every play that...
You still know it.
Every single line.
Wow.
I never forgot. So they said, he knows it. He's too young. But the kid, he knows it. Put him on. Well, he'll need a lot of makeup. Well, do it. So they put a white wig on me. They put a mustache. They put wrinkles. They put black lines all over. They said, no, that's Parkinson's. Don't do it. All right. I said, I'll do whatever. And then he came in. Harry came in, lights. I entered, there's an audience there. Wow. I said, there, Harry. I think I was talking pretty. I was a little nervous. Have a seat and tell me in your own words, whatever you can remember. Here, have a glass of water. It slipped. The water slipped, fell out of my hands, crashed in front of him on the desk. 1,000 shards. Hush from the audience. Hush from Harry. Hush from me. Silence in the middle of this play. Mel Brooks walks down to the footlights, takes off his wig and his mustache. He says, I'm 14. I've never done this before. I get enormous laughter.
Yeah.
Enormous. Of course, I think the director of the play got a half a scissor and was trying to kill me.
Yeah.
But I knew then, okay, that's it.
You got that laugh, and that's a chemical reaction.
That's it. It said, you were meant not for the garment center, but to make people laugh. Go forth from this place, Melvin, and make people happy. Make them laugh, and you'll get a lot more money than the garment center. Something. That's the voice I heard.
Yeah, that's a very wise voice.
Must have been a Jew.
Also a Jewish voice.
Right.
You know what's funny to me? Your start in show business, your first big laugh, is you breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
And that is something that you did so brilliantly in several of your movies, breaking the fourth wall. And when you did it in Blazing Saddles, it just broke people's minds in a great way. I mean, it really blew people away. But it has always been something that you've liked to do. It was the first laugh you got, and it was something that you...
Yeah, it's kind of dropping the other shoe or telling the ultimate truth or,
Yeah.
It works. The audience knows that essentially they know it's make-believe. And you just join them in that at given points, and it works.
What were you, who were you watching? Who was funny to you when you were a kid?
That's a good question. I don't know if I want to answer it at this point in our relationship.
Okay. How about after some wine?
I can, yeah, right.
If I give you a little wine, maybe?
Yeah, but what did you drink with Marty Short? Just have straight Irish whiskey?
No.
No.
We had wine. We should have had whiskey. We should have.
Sure.
We should have had whiskey.
There are Irish whiskeys,
Are there?
Yeah.
I don't know this stuff.
Yeah.
No one tells me.
What kind of wine? Do you remember the wine you had? Cabernet?
I think it was a Pinot Noir.
Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
Pinot Noir is a Burgundy, by the way. It's a small. I have a wine cellar.
Really?
Would you like some?
I would like to go live there. Could I live there?
Sure.
Hey, let's do another one of these in your wine cellar,
Right.
and we'll just drink, and then I'll sleep there for.
Let me get back to the first thing I remembered. I think was Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
There was a place in Coney Island. Joe Heller told me he was born a block away from it, called Feldman's on Surf Avenue. And Feldman's was like Nathan's, but a restaurant that you could sit down and have a hamburger or a frankfurter or whatever, was au courant. And but they had silent movies. So I always begged my mom not to go to Nathan's, but to go to Feldman, so I could see Buster Keaton or I could see Charlie Chaplin, and because it was so magical and so thrilling, and all of us really laughed. I remember the first thing I ever saw was Charlie Chaplin in a boxing ring, hitting the guy, getting behind the referee, and going around. It was an amazing thing. It was an amazing phenomenon, amazing performance. And I said, well, that's really comedy. That is really comedy. And I never forgot it.
Did you like the Marx Brothers?
I love them.
Because when I see the Marx Brothers, there's something about what they're doing that always has felt evocative to me about you, which is
anarchy.
Anarchy and relentless.
Yes.
Relentless. You are relentless. Chaplin can be measured, and sometimes it's a ballet. You are relentless in the way that the Marx Brothers are relentless.
When I was doing History of the World, Part 1, and there was this beautiful courtesan, and I was the king, and she was bending over to pick a flower. I just banged into her. Mm-hmm. I said, what I'm doing Harpo Marx. He just listened to his body rhythms. If there was a woman around, he would just bang into her. I mean, the freedom that they had, and the kind of vocal ping pong that he'd play with Chico, and it was just absolutely thrilling. I also liked the Ritz Brothers. And nobody knows.
That's the thing is, I don't know the work of the Ritz Brothers. And I hear about the Ritz Brothers, but I don't know their work. Were they?
They were sensational. They danced in unison perfectly. They sang. Harry Ritz had the first. Everybody, when you watch Jerry
Lewis,
or Sid Caesar, or countless great physical comics, they're doing Harry. I wouldn't say. I'll tell you the truth. It's Harry.
Right.
Harry Ritz, the center of the Ritz Brothers. I used him in Silent Movie. He went to purchase a suit. The one that was in the window was a display of the tailor's prowess with canvas and with paper and with stitching. He bought that suit and walked out with it.
Yeah, so great.
So he did his and and I think that humor, if I may wax.
This is for waxing. That's what we do here is wax.
Intellectually. I think it comes from hundreds of years of Jewish humor in villages, shtetls or villages, because I don't think the Jews were allowed to do their stuff in cities, actually. But I think their comedy was based on misfortune. Mm-hmm. I think if there was a hunchback or a cripple, he was grist for the mill. And they used it. And they got big laughs. They didn't give a shit, that it was in questionable taste,
So
and the Harry Ritz just got it from that school of comedy.
Did it not, because the Marx Brothers have lived on because of the films. I mean, Duck Soup is a classic. Did the Ritz Brothers did it not get through on film? Or do you think it did get through on film? Is there a reason why people don't know the Ritz Brothers the way they know the Marx Brothers?
You've said profoundly without realizing, because you're not that smart. But it was.
I stumbled on something. I stumbled.
Something, right. But it is what perpetuates our feeling about people is their longevity. There's very little or no longevity if 20th Century Fox doesn't reissue Sonia Haney movies in which the Ritz brothers were the comic relief, the comedy relief. And roughly, a lot of the Sonia Haney, who she was? She was
I know, yeah.
She was like, an Olympic star.
Yeah.
They made movies with her, usually starring John Payne, occasionally Don Amici. But the Ritz brothers were always the comedy relief in those pictures, And they, at least they were in movies. Let me tell you a story. May I? It's about Sid, one of your favorite people, Sid Caesar.
Yeah. So
it's the second year. We've done the Admiral Broadway review. We have done the first year. That was 48 to 49.
Are you right? Is this?
I'm writing.
You're writing for Sid.
I'm right. Well,
Caesar.
I was his stooge, just
yelling
ideas and jokes, and then formally writing in the first year of the Show of Shows. A bit of a genius by the name of Pat Weaver worked at NBC, and he thought of this 2.5-hour evening of comedy. Jack Carter with 1 hour from 8 to 9 from Chicago, and Sid Caesar at the International Theater in Columbus Circle for an hour and a half under the leadership of Max Liebman, who literally put on a Broadway review.
Did Max Liebman knew him from the Army, didn't he? Didn't Max?
He found him in Tarzan Spars. You're right.
Yeah.
In the Coast Guard. But
yeah.
Max Liebman found him in the Coast Guard and used him, immediately on his show.
Knew he had big talent.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, Sid, I met Sid because of Donna Pell. There again, Donna Pell brought me to the Copacabana because he said, one of the guys in my shows in the mountains has made it as a comic. So I said, oh, Sid Caesar, I saw Tarzan Spars. So he introduced me to Sid, and we hit it off. And I entertained Sid. And after his stint at the Copacabana, he worked at the Roxy Theater. And he said, I'm the stage show. I'm the comic relief in the stage show. The movie is Forever Amber. It'll probably be there a couple of weeks. It was there for close to a year. I mean, it never stopped running. So he would go crazy, and he'd call me and he'd say, come. And I'd come backstage before, while the movie was playing, and I would entertain Sid and talk to him. And then he told me about this television show. And I said, I'm not sure. Graven Images. I'm not sure. I don't know. You take your picture. Where's it going? It's out there.
You're like a Native American.
Yeah, I said it's... he's very funny. I said, it's going to the netherworld. He said, Holland? I said, no. Very funny. So anyway, I began writing.
Yeah.
This is to your point, believe it or not. I'm getting you back there.
That's all right.
And Admiral Broadway Review, one season, 39 in those days. We wrote 39 shows. Second year, this genius, Pat Weaver, the Jack Carter show didn't work, but there was still an hour and a half from 9 to 10:30 out of New York, NBC, and big ratings, big hit. Second year, even bigger ratings, even bigger hit against Milton Berle, against wrestling, against whatever was on television in those days. Okay, it's time for Sid Caesar to sign for the third year, probably for 2 years, or maybe three years, right? So, genius, I say, Sid, don't sign. Do not sign. I had done a couple of months trying to figure out something with Freddie Colmar and these guys at Columbia. I was going to write a movie for them called Pal Joey. They'd found me from the Sid Caesar show. And I was talked up as being this new, smart, funny writing kid. So I was only in my late 20s. So they took me out to the coast, and I worked there for 3 months during the summer. And Sinatra could not, at that point, do Pal Joey. So it all went for naught, but still they paid me, and we talked about movies. And one of the guys mentioned, you're writing the Sid Caesar, because they knew I was going back to writing it. They said, why don't you bring him out here? We'll make some movies with him. This guy, Jerry Wald, was running. He was a very good comedy writer when he was a kid, running the movie production at Columbia Pictures. So I came back and I said, Sid, don't sign. Let's go to Hollywood. Let's make movies. I'll direct them. I'm very smart. I can do that. And we'll get writers with me, and we'll write. You're funnier than Danny Kaye. I said he's funny. He's charming.
Yes.
He's delicious. He's really entertaining, but he's not funny.
Right.
You are really funny. You're funnier than Red Skelton. You're funnier than anybody in Hollywood. And, you'll be a revelation to the world. And the world, they only know you on television and, and they're crazy about you. But you'll go to Sweden. Wouldn't you like to be seen in Sweden? So anyway, I said, more important, Sidney. I called him Sidney when I was serious. Sidney, if you make movies, you will live. It'll, like Voltaire wrote things down and we read them to this day. On celluloid, you will live. On kinescope, you will die. Quelle différence.
Plus the workload of 39.
Right, 39 shows, doing 5 or 6 different,
And he's in everything.
He's in everything. So he said, you're right. Let's do that. Come on, Mel, let's go to Hollywood. Let's make movies. He was handsome. I said, you'll be a leading man, and you'll be the funniest leading man that ever lived. And we'll take our time, and we'll do a movie a year, and we'll both get rich, and we'll meet beautiful women, and we'll live under a palm tree. It's gorgeous out there. And he said, okay. And he did say, he said, I will do that. I will do that. And he spoke to Max Liebman, and of course there was panic, and went all the way to the top of RCA, the Sarnoff people that ran. They all went crazy. And at the end of the week, I said, Sid, I haven't heard from you. You know what's going on? I called Jerry Wald. I called Freddie Colmar. I called Joni Taps. Joni Taps, one of the producers, wore black and white shoes. I never forgot it. Black and white wingtip shoes. Nobody wore shoes. I said, Joni, not since the 20s. Nobody wear, So that's wonderful. So anyway, I said, Sid, we're going to Hollywood, know. And I said, but, I called him. I said, I haven't heard from you. And Sid said, they were giving him something like 5 in those days. Now I'm talking about, let's see, 49, 50, 50, 51, 51, 52. I'm talking about 1952. In 1952, he would be making $5,000 a week. That's like $1 million. I don't know what. I don't really know. What the. But
it was a lot. It was a lot of money, but I'm sure they backed up the truck. Was that it? They wanted.
So, and they did very well. NBC, it was their star program, and so what they did is he kept saying no, no, no. They said, we'll double it. He said, no, I'm going to make movies. Because I said, in the end, you'll make just as much money, maybe more, but you'll have what we all want. We don't want fame and fortune. We want our stuff to be seen and we want to be appreciated. That's what we're living for in this business. Well, we want to be saluted by the world for our contribution to showbiz. So in the end, they offered him $25,000 a week, and he couldn't say no. So that was the end of our dreams. And to this day, I will walk, because of my movies, I will walk somewhere and kids will shout, "Spaceball rules."
Yep.
But if Sid walked anywhere, they wouldn't pay any attention to him. They don't know what he's done. It's just like you don't know the Ritz brothers.
Right.
This greatest comic that ever lived is unknown in America today.
It's funny because I don't know whose idea it was, but one of the reasons that I really wanted to get, that I was inspired, I remembered very clearly, it was a movie theater called the Hearthstone Plaza, right near my parents' house in Brookline, and my dad took me to see, sometime in the early 70s, they packaged your show of shows.
Oh,
10
from your show of shows.
10 from your show of shows, and they showed it, and I went and watched that in the movie theater.
You had never seen him before?
Never seen. Because I couldn't know who Sid Caesar was. No. They weren't rerunning him on TV. It wasn't. I watched that with my dad, and I remember very clearly that This Is Your Life sketch, where Sid's running away in the audience. I watched that, and I had that feeling of, how do you get to do that?
Yeah.
And this is, I don't know, 1974.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm 10, 11.
Yeah.
And that's also not what I was supposed to like.
Right.
You know, I'm a kid.
You were heading for the garment center.
Exactly. That was going to be, be the first Gentile in the garment center.
Right.
With orange hair and freckles. But I saw that. So fortunately, that's what brought Sid Caesar to me. And, you know, I knew who you were through the movies.
Yeah, sure.
But I didn't know
became famous. I became what I wanted Sid Caesar to become. Well known and appreciated for his singular and really creative contribution to comedy, you know.
Yeah.
And it never worked. It never worked out. Rudy,
that show really burnt him out, too.
Yeah, it did.
It did. I mean,
he was up until 1960. I mean, you know, he did like, I don't know, something like 9 years on television.
And then he went right from that to a Broadway show.
Make My Manhattan.
Yeah, and then right into Mad World. Yeah. And then I think he just was, he was exhausted. He was exhausted.
I grabbed him and used him in one or two, in Silent Movie.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I made him the studio chief. I gave him 2 cigars to smoke at the same time. And I let him do all the crazy takes and all the stuff that Sid Caesar is so well known for. And in the history of the world, he was a caveman, and he made a beautiful painting on a cave wall. And another caveman who was the critic, the art critic, comes and pees on it, you know, and pisses all over. And he's so unhappy. And then but I used him as much as I could, you know, within the limits of what characters we had created to do these.
What I'm fascinated is after Caesar's Hour. I'm not sure what year this is. This has got to be late 50s. You were broke.
Yeah, I was. No, I had done.
After
I done that. Well, I'll tell you when I was broke. I struggled through and got. After Caesar's Hour, I was broke, and I struggled for a couple of years.
Why were you broke? Were you spending it as soon as it came in?
No.
This is an intervention, by the way.
Yeah.
We got to stop your spending. Yeah. It's insane.
It's really, you know, this show is a lot better for me than your show. I'll do your show again. I promised you when you did my AFR, you were very good.
Oh, thank you.
Really funny.
You know what I worried about with that? I was emotional. I just wanted to be sweet and talk about how much you meant to me. And I saw everyone else going out and doing shtick, and kind of it was a roast.
Yeah, it was like a roast.
And I'm backstage, and I thought I can't do it. I don't feel like that's my place.
Yeah.
So I went out and I was nice, and then I walked off stage and I thought,
no, you were funny.
I'm not zinging him. Well, I always walk off stage depressed.
Yeah, well, I don't blame. Yeah, I mean, that's.
I don't blame.
I blame you because half the time you're spot on. You know. No, seriously.
Yeah.
You know, the comics are cruel. I'm sorry.
No. But
you are really. I got to tell you, I've seen a lot of comics. I've been around a long time. From nightclubs to Borscht Belt to big stuff to television to movies and stuff, and you're up there. You're good. You're really good.
You know what's interesting? I have lived off my insecurity as a comedian, and I think there's a lot of comedians that do that. And for me, it's always I never feel safe, and it's my backpedaling, my bobbing and weaving that people seem to like, and living. When I look at you, I don't get insecurity. When I look at your comedy, there's never been a hint of insecurity coming from your comedy. No. Is that fair?
It is. I've never shown it, but I mean there is an enormous amount of anxiety behind it. But I'm a brilliant and skilled performer and actor. It's true.
Yes,
and I cover it with a great deal of bravado.
Yes.
You know, I do. I'd say. You know. I used to come on stage in the Borscht Belt. I'd come on stage and I'd say, stop examining me. The Jewish women down front, they're looking, you know. I said, stop examining me. Stop looking at me. Relax. Sit back. You're going to love me. I'm terrific. I'm really funny. Not like the bullshit you've seen up here. You know, you're going to love all the stuff I did. I went to a restaurant Thursday. That's how I...
What a great way to come out,
Yeah,
though.
that's just the way I used to come out.
That is the exact opposite of how I've approached comedy. Yeah. And you don't choose how you go at it. Everyone finds their way. But what you just described is beautiful to me, because it's obviously, you were right, it worked, but it's such an audacious...
It is, because the audience terrifies us.
Yeah.
So fuck them. Let's give them a little of their own, you know.
Yeah.
Let's get even with them. Let's scare the shit out of the audience, you know. And I used to do that.
I think the other thing too is with your films, audacious is another word.
Yeah.
I mean, I remembered the reaction. I saw Blazing Saddles before I saw The Producers. I know that The Producers was first, but I was too young to see The Producers. I saw Blazing Saddles, and it was a nuclear bomb went off. I mean, which must have been fun for you.
Yeah, it was just, I said when we were writing it, we had a great writer's room. There was Andy Bergman, there was Norman Steinberg, there was Richard Pryor sitting next, and we all had bagels and lox for breakfast. Richard had Remy Martin. That was for breakfast. Anyway, I said to these guys, this thing is this going to go nowhere. It's a Western. People haven't seen a Western in 35 years. They don't give a shit about it. We're making a Western. They don't give a fuck about horses. This is not going to work. So let's do everything that we weren't allowed to do as comedy writers, as kids. Let's just, all bets are off. We go nuts. And that's the way we wrote it. We wrote it crazy.
Richard Pryor, was supposed to play the
He was
Cleavon
going to be,
part.
yeah.
He was going to be the sheriff.
He was going to be Black Bart. Yeah. And then somebody from Warner Brothers said, he takes drugs. We have people, lawyers. We can't. There's no insurance. He does, and he did. He was taking drugs, but he still was the best.
Yeah.
What difference did it make? And I said to them, nobody will know. They'll just see a performance, and he'll cream them. He'll kill them. He's the best comic that ever lived. I said, you gotta. But they wouldn't have him. And later, we saw a lot of guys auditioning for Black Bart, and I turned to Richard. I always had him next to me. I said, Richard, I love this guy, and he said, he said something. It was Cleavon Little.
Yeah.
And Richard said, if I rode into town with my kind of tan face and my black mustache, I'd look more like a Cuban than a N.
Yeah. N-word.
Yeah. N-word.
Yeah.
He said, I look more like a Cuban than an N. He said, but this guy, he is fucking black. He will scare the shit out of them, And we also had charm and grace.
Yes.
He was beautiful, and his timing was perfect. So,
great timing.
So it's like in my making movies, I've had a couple of lucky bounce. That was a lucky bounce. Not having Richard Pryor, but getting Cleavon Little was a great bounce in favor of the movie really working. Blazing Saddles really working. Am I on or you on him? Am I on? Yeah. Stay on me, for Christ's sake. The hell are you cutting in the middle of my... No, they didn't.
They're going to cut it beautifully.
No,
It'll all be you. The N-word. Could you do that today?
Well,
it felt like there was a period of time where you used that word and it...
Well, in Django, Quentin Tarantino.
Now, yes, Django...
He used it, but...
Who used it more? Is it more in Blazing Saddles or is it more in Django?
It's about even.
You counted them?
It's dreadful. It's really, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But both in a good cause.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody. My son Max was explaining, the guy that did, World War Z wrote the book. Max was explaining to me the other night. He said, Dad, I don't think anybody has covered slavery as acutely and as brilliantly as Tarantino did in Django. He said, it's really covered. In other movies, it's sentimentalized, it's emotionalized, it's romanticized. But he said Quentin nailed slavery just for what it was.
Yeah.
It's horrendous, and he did it. So, and it's a great picture. And when I saw him at a restaurant after it opened, and I said, I forgive you for taking the N-word from me, from another white man. And I said, and I told him how wonderful I thought his movie was.
I want to talk about the producers. I know that I didn't see it till after I'd seen Blazing Saddles, and I loved it. And then I was shocked to find out you made the picture, and it's a classic. And then when, years later, biggest hit ever on Broadway, when it came out, critics killed it. Is that true?
Well, the one we needed the most to survive the initial opening of the film was the New York Times.
Yeah.
Because that was like the posh paper, the important paper that would drive all the Jews and the intellectuals to buy tickets to see it, However, Renata, you don't forget these things. God bless me. Renata Adler was the motion picture critic for the Times, and she thought it was just a ridiculous, despicable, she called it black college humor. She thought the leading man was too fat. Poor Zero. Zero Mostel.
Yeah, Zero Mostel needed to slim down for that role. Right. Zero Mostel.
And I came home that night after the Times came out. Ann and I sat together on the couch, and I was really crying. I said, "Well, I made a good living in television. Get Smart, Show of Shows." I said, "I can go back to it. I can make a living, and I can do good things." So movies, they don't want me. Movies are not for me. And then other papers came out that were middling, warm, fair. But then the magazines came out. Look and Time and Newsweek. And there were raves, all of them. Gene Shalit said, no one will be seated for the first 88 minutes of the producers. They'll all be on the floor laughing their heads out.
That's great.
Heads up. It was wonderful. So he kept it going, and it ran for about eight months.
Did Peter Sellers take out a...
He did. He killed me in London. He took out an ad before we opened in the evening, the Standard and the Guardian. Big ads, double truck ads.
Right.
Saying this is the funniest picture ever made, the greatest comedy you'll ever see. And the critics said, well, we'll be the judge of that.
Yeah.
And
they don't like to hear that.
And but it hung on in England too. And they liked it.
Springtime for Hitler, when Producers comes out, so many people, including yourself, World War II, concentration camps, Hitler, is so fresh. It's still so new. Did you have a fear that it's too soon?
Opening night, St. James Theater, 44th Street on Broadway. Opening night of the Producers. Middle of Act 2. We're doing Springtime for Hitler.
Yeah.
And a big guy stands up, starts screaming at the stage and walking up the aisle. Where the fuck is Mel Brooks? How dare he, such an outrage. Jews in concentration camps. And so I'm in the back. And I say, I'm Mel Brooks. I want to stop this guy. It's the opening night of the Producers. And he says, I was in World War II. And I said, I was in World War II. I didn't see you there. So, I mean, yeah, I try to diffuse that. Oh, it was terrible. No, but there was I got a lot of, when I first did the producers, the film, rabbis galore. I just got, every rabbi in New York sent me a letter. Think twice before you do another thing that's, think, And I wrote back to every single letter I got explaining you can't get on a soapbox with Hitler. You've got to ridicule him you got to bring him down with laughter or there's no way to get even.
Yeah.
And try to make them understand, what the real intent of the Springtime for Hitler number was all about.
And talk about lucky bounces. I mean, Gene Wilder, Zero Mostel, but then Dick Shawn.
Oh.
Dick Shawn is someone who, I mean, I was the wrong generation.
Yeah, you were a little baby.
I was a baby, but I always knew Dick Shawn was hilariously funny.
He was so.
And he's so fantastic in that movie.
Yeah, he is so great. Yeah, I miss him a lot. He died at a very young age. Died on stage.
He died on stage.
Yeah, wow. It's a good way to go. I don't want to go that way.
You don't want to go on stage?
No, I'd rather die trying to get to my bed at 102 and then just missing and falling on the floor and saying, Manny, I would have a guy working for me called Manny. Manny. And that's the way. That's how I want to go. Falling for Manny at 102. Just nearly
Manny will be
making my
95.
bed. Yeah.
I'm coming.
Did you hear him? I thought I heard him. Yeah.
Young Frankenstein. Did you want to be in Young Frankenstein? Was your idea that you would be?
I was going to do the Kenny Mars role.
Yeah.
The inspector, the police commissioner.
Yeah.
And Gene said, I won't do it. I'll do the movie with you. I'll write it with you. I'll star in it. I'll work. If you just promise one thing. And I said, what's that, Gene? He said, that you won't be in it.
Why?
He said, because you're liable to open the mask of a guy in armor and say, hiya, folks.
Right.
He said, you're always breaking, I don't want to break any fourth walls here.
Right.
I want it to be, in a strange way, a salute to Mary Shelley and James Whale.
Yes, yeah.
I said, I agree with you.
It's beautiful that way.
And he said, and we should do it in black and white. I said, right. And I said, okay, I won't be in it.
How'd you get that? How'd you get it made in black and white?
It was it was crazy because we had this deal with Columbia.
Studio can't be happy about that.
We had a deal with Columbia Pictures to make the movie, and just as I was leaving, we all shook hands. David Pickett, Schneider, Columbia guys. We're going to make the movie. We're going to make Young Frankenstein for Columbia. Shake hands. I get to the door. I leave, just as the way I hold the door for a minute. I say, by the way, we're going to do it in black and white, just the way James Whale would have. And I leave, and then I hear these Jews thundering after me down the hall. Wait, don't. What are you, crazy? What are you? And they grabbed me, they took me back, and they said, we're not going to do it. We had, an hour later, they said, okay, we'll make it in black and white, but on color stock, so that we can show it in color in Peru, which just got color, And I said, no, because you'll screw me.
Yes.
You will say this, and then in order to save the company, you'll risk a lawsuit, and you will print everything in color. It's got to be on AGVA, black and white, thick film, even though it's having trouble going through the sprockets and stuff. I want it like
it looks beautiful.
It is Jerry Hirschfeld.
We're talking really, it looks like Casablanca. It looks like one of the great black and now it is one of the great black and white movies.
It is black and white, backlighting, a halo around the women.
The women.
And Jean's blonde hair too. Yeah. It was just beautifully photographed.
I feel like there's a second where you break the fourth wall with Marty.
Marty was very difficult not to break the fourth wall.
I think he looks right to camera at one point, but it's just the tiniest.
Yeah.
God, he was funny.
Marty was very brave, and he said, at one point, he says, I've got this speech. Would you mind if I took some pauses in it? I'd like to take a bit of time. But I said, sure. Do it any way you feel, properly, comfortable. So he said, I'll never forget. Oh, it's the scene starts with Gene Wilder. And he says, reputation. And Terry Garr says, Dr. Frankenstein, you haven't touched your food. You'll get sick. He said, there, and he smashes it. I've touched it, there. And then Marty says, I'll never forget what my father said on occasions like this. And then he didn't say anything. I mean, it was crazy. I'll never forget what my father said on occasions like this. And then, so we all waited. I'm behind the camera way, and Gene is the best because he just looks away because he knows if he looks at him, he's gonna.
Yeah.
He took about a minute. I'll never forget my father said on occasions like this. And Gene takes the whole minute. Finally, Gene says, what did he say? What did he say? And Marty says, get out of the bathroom, give someone else a chance. And then he eats a big potato. I mean, it was like to me like the best scene in the movie,
Yeah.
Just the timing and it was so. I mean, it was such a pleasure. When I made movies, I needed my rest. I would have cottage cheese and some sliced peaches or something in my trailer, and that was it. I wouldn't just to gather my strength and having to deal with the. But on that picture, I found Cloris, I found Madeline, I found Gene, I found Marty, Peter Boyle, and I would just gather them together and have lunch with them. I love them, so literally love them so much.
Let me ask you, I was thinking about this today. I don't know of a comedy mind that's been better at finding women, funny women, than you. And you said just now, there's Madeline Kahn, Bernadette Peters, Cloris Leachman, Terry Garr. You found such great, funny women. I think you're better at that than anybody in the history of the medium. Why? Why? What was it about you?
I was hoping against hope they'd sleep with me. Praying. All right. I know you were thinking of George Brent. I know you were thinking of a handsome guy with a mustache. He was an actor.
Yeah.
Handsome guy with a mustache. But, who knows? It's in the dark. We'll do it fast.
Yeah.
And they said, no, let's think about it, But anyway, no, I knew, to this day I know who these people are, and they're like Sarah Silverman, they're talented, and there's an inner energy and a glow that, and Madeline was supremely talented.
Yes.
And she could sing as well as any coloratura. She sang, Glitter and Be Gay, which is an aria from Candide that Leonard Bernstein wrote. Mm-hmm. And it's impossible to sing. Very few people can sing it, and Madeline could sing it in the center of every single note with incredible changes of tempo. And she could do it. Madeline was and her timing, she was so talented. I mean, she had lived one line for me, and I nearly ruined the take. Because Gregory Hines is pouring her wine. Yeah. And he says, and she's the empress in Rome, and as he pours it, he says, say when? She says, 8:30. And the way, it was, we had another, line planned, but she just so quickly undercut it. Yeah, she was amazing.
But it's funny because people think of that era that sometimes people think women are allowed to be funny now. This is more of a modern, and you think, no, it's really not true. You always, throughout your career, finding really funny women and letting them carry the ball.
Yeah.
Really letting them go.
Yeah, Cloris was, you couldn't, if you smoked around Cloris, she'd slap the cigarette right out of your mouth. She was a little nuts, you know.
Yeah.
She's still with us, thank God. But, you know, but I'm careful not to smoke around her.
Don't smoke around her. I wouldn't want that to happen. High anxiety. High anxiety, it's an homage to Hitchcock. What I didn't realize is that you actually knew Hitchcock and you were friends.
He helped me write it.
I didn't know that.
I sent him a very rough outline, a précis of it. I said it's basically your career, and I want to know when and how I'm stepping over the line and what I'm doing. If anything offends you,
right?
You know, if the whole thing offends you, I won't do it because I admire you so much, and I said frankly, I think you're the best director that ever lived, and I believe that to this day. He's the best film director that ever lived. I told that to Billy Wilder, who didn't like that.
Billy Wilder didn't like that too much.
They didn't like that too much, but Hitchcock had it all. And I said, and he called me, and he said, Mr. Brooks. I said, who is this? He said, it's Hitch. I said, well, stop this bullshit. Come on, who the fuck is this? You know what I mean? And he said, it's Alfred Hitchcock. I said, really? He said, yes. I want you to come to my studio tomorrow, Friday. Come to Universal. I'll leave a pass for you. Be there at noon. I said, yes, sir, yes, sir. You know, and I did. And then he talked about the script, and he said what he thought I should use, the parts of his films that he thought would lend themselves to parody, to satire. And
was he right?
He was absolutely spot on.
Did he pitch jokes?
He pitched one joke, I couldn't use it. Then he pitched a joke. He said, there's a man running, and they're after him with guns drawn, and he's running for his life. And suddenly he comes to the end of the dock, and the ferry is 10 feet away, and with a Herculean effort, he leaps into the air and makes it on the ferry, but he doesn't know that the ferry's coming in. You know?
That's good.
Yeah. And I said, yeah, but I wasn't going to pay for a ferry in high anxiety.
Did you get to socialize much with him?
Yeah, we went to Chasen's. That was his favorite.
What's it like?
Restaurant.
What's it like to go to Chasen's with Alfred Hitchcock?
Oh, I mean, you can get it on my box set.
I have your box set.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't seen that part yet.
Incredible.
But, yeah.
Well, I think it's in there where it's a true story. I can't believe it. So he orders a shrimp cocktail, a sirloin steak, 2 inches, medium rare, asparagus, and a baked potato with sour cream. Okay. First thing that comes, 6 large shrimp with cocktail sauce. I order filet of sole. You know, I'm nervous eating with him. I can't eat much. And then he eats the steak, tucks it away beautifully, eats asparagus, plenty of sour cream in the middle of that baked potato, and then he orders a frap, 2 yellow balls of ice cream with some chocolate sauce, some grated nuts and a cherry, and he eats that. Okay, they pour him some coffee, he sips the coffee, he opens his coat, reaches into his vest, takes out a beautiful ostrich leather covered cigar case, flips it open, he takes out probably a Cuban cigar, illegal, but he had, the best taste. And he puts it in, and he takes out from his vest a little guillotine, and he clips the tip of the cigar. And he reaches in his other pocket, and before he can, George, the head waiter, is over with a lighter or a match or something. Right. And he leans forward and stops. I said, well, this is a momentous moment. He stops. He leans back. The guy stands there. He says, George, I still feel a bit peckish. Do it again.
The whole
I said,
thing?
what the fuck? What does he really mean, do it again?
Yeah.
And 5 minutes later, shrimp cocktail. 6 large shrimp, cocktail sauce, asparagus in its own little dish, steak, little green things in the sour cream and the.
All these years later, you know every detail of this meal.
I know every detail. He didn't. I lied when I was on television. I said 2 yellow balls. He didn't. I mean, he didn't have the dessert.
Yeah.
He said, I'm going to eschew whatever the fuck that was. I'm going to eschew the frap, and he had a cup of coffee, and then he lit the cigar. I mean, but he had the whole meal. I mean, he was, and he said to me, Melvin, he called me Melvin. He said, Melvin, we only live once. And I never forgot that. And that's why once in a while I'll go to a bar and say, what are you doing later? Bang! All right. Okay. Yeah. I'll take because he said.
You only live once.
Because you only live once and you take a shot, And you're embarrassed. I hate to say that. I hope you don't show this to my children, but might be watching.
I'd like to ask you about...
You've asked enough. I've done it. I don't even fucking know what I get paid for this, if anything.
You have to pay. You have to pay for the right to be here. This costs $75. This ride. This is how we make this thing pay.
I'll give you $50 right now in cash. Cash, the 75 is a bit much.
How the hell did you land in Bancroft? How did you get her to marry you? Most beautiful woman, most talented woman. How did you do that?
I really can't talk much about it. I was very lucky to.
Yeah.
She spotted something. She said one thing that made her attracted to me. She said, "You look like my father, and you talk like my mother." It's true.
A great combination.
Yeah, you talk like my mother, and we just knew that we were meant for each other, and it was great for 45 years.
Unbelievable.
And and it's very hard, to do without her.
One thing I have always had a hard time imagining for you is the idea of you writing for another performer, because you love to do it so much that I imagine it would be hard for you to write for another comedian. And someone told me, I don't know if it's true, that you wrote for Jerry Lewis, and I have a hard time picturing you writing for Jerry.
It was one of the toughest experiences of my life, because after writing the show of shows, such a classy, remarkable, very creative show.
Very literate show.
Yeah. We would, our references. I'll tell you, one of our jokes, our references were incredible. Whether the audience did. First of all, we did foreign movies. The audience had never seen a foreign movie. We did Japanese movies, Italian movies, French movies, German movies. But once, in one of our scenes, Sid was in the box so he wouldn't hear, and they closed the door, and it was a game show, and he was in this no hearing glass
Enclosed space, right?
Enclosed space. So they locked the door, and Carl was the host, and he began talking. He said, in 1918, America entered World War I, and Sid was moving back and forth and finally slumped down. Carl said, "Put the air in! Put the air in!" I mean, it was amazing. And then finally, he said, and the last question is, for all the money, for the $64,000, the last question is, who wrote the opera Faust? Now, I mean, this is America. We're doing a show for people in North Carolina, and Abilene, Texas. And Sid says, in kind of a Jewish New York way, he says, Gono. And Cole says, yes, Gono, you got it. You know, and Gono was the author, you know, of the opera, you know. And so, but I mean, the nerve of us to assume that enough Americans knew that Gounod had written Samson and Delilah, or whatever. Yeah, I think that was the opera.
But also, it still works a little bit, even if you don't know. You know, you can still.
Well, Carl was brilliant and followed up with shouting Gounod.
Yeah.
After Sid had said Gono, you know.
Yes.
And covered it. You know. Carl was always so. You got to get him to do this.
So then you're right.
Do this Jibber-Jabber, because he's so. Didn't he sing Pagliacci on your show?
He did. He sang it on our show, and then he got an offer from a touring opera company. So I think he's going to go out on the road. Yes.
He did.
So then you're writing for Jerry Lewis, and it's not the same situation.
No, it's not. I wrote I was writing one of the writers of a movie called The Ladies' Man. I wrote a couple of jokes that were okay, but he kept improving them, and I kept explaining that's not what the joke is about, or that's not what the rhythm is about, or you know. And finally, I just quit. You know.
Yeah. In
the middle, I know we have a contract. I'm going to keep the money. You know.
Not the instrument for you to speak.
And I liked him. I liked Jerry. Jerry was always good, always. But he had his. We all have our own, like you do with your writers, and you do with your. Yeah. We all have our own prejudices about what we think works and where the rim shot is, you know.
Yes.
And Jerry heard the rim shot somewhere else, and you know, he wasn't a bad guy. He had a '59 Jaguar, black with leather interior, red leather. What a car! What a car! And he said, "I don't like it. I don't like the way it handles. I said, "Jerry, it's the most beautiful car in the world." And this is Jerry Lewis, and he had paid $10,000 or $12,000 for it a year before. This was 1960, and it was a '59 Jaguar, you know, X something. I don't know, it was beautiful. He said, "You want it?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Give me $5,000." I said, "Okay, take it out of my salary," you know. And I got the car.
Where's the car now?
I gave it to Howie Morris a couple of years later, 3 or 4 years later, because I went back to New York, and Howie came out here to direct movies, and you know, and I really beautiful car. So Jerry wasn't such a bad guy, but we didn't see eye to eye on everything that, you know, he had his own. And he wasn't so damn bad. He was a bit of a genius in his own world, you know. The French weren't crazy when they lauded him and went nuts about him. They saw a bit of a genius. And they were right, you know. And I loved him personally, but I mean, we just didn't see eye to eye on rhythm.
For rhythm, you were a drummer, and I know Johnny Carson was a drummer.
Johnny Carson was a drummer.
And
he wasn't so bad.
No, and I think I saw 60 Minutes with Johnny Carson where he's playing, and you could he took it seriously.
Oh yeah.
I
loved it.
You were a serious drummer.
Well, I mean, for 2 or 3 years, that's how I made a living. You know.
Yeah.
There was a band called Charlie Spivak. It's a famous band, and his drummer got sick, and I was 15. I too young to be in the union or something, and I subbed for his drummer for a whole summer at the Riviera nightclub at Fort Lee, New Jersey. But this was the tempo. You know, that was his. He was a trumpet player, and he was known as the sweetest trumpet this side of heaven. And he was very good, and the band was very good, but a little what we would call, musicians would call Mickey Mouse. And I was interested in.
Yeah.
You know, I was just, you know, when you're drumming, you got to show off, you know.
So, because I grew up watching you go on Johnny, and I could see how much he loved you, how much you loved being there, and you do feel like you're watching two drummers. It's two guys who know the rhythm of how something's supposed to go, which is you know. And
he would, you know, he'd crack up, he'd fall down. You were pretty good when I was on your show. I really appreciated your truly you know, enjoying it and cracking up. It was very good.
But it's fun to watch. You know, I did some project for Turner where I looked at a lot of the Johnny Carsons, and it was a real highlight when you would go on. I don't know how it felt to you.
Oh, it really.
But throughout the years, it really was appointment television when you were going to be on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. That was a huge deal.
It was, you know, for me. It was a genuine, you know, thrill. It was a genuine thrill because he'd have great retorts. He'd come back. The vocal ping pong was fabulous.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd always pick up the wrong. I'd make a point of picking up Ed McMahon's mug, you know, and and I what the fuck? What's in this, you know? Always, every time I was on. Like,
but it works every time.
Carson would go. He'd go every time, you know.
We have, I don't want to frighten you with this device. This is a modern device, and I think we have 2 questions from the web. Is that right, Frank? Yes. All right. Sarah from Facebook asks, why hasn't Blazing Saddles been made into a Broadway musical?
Sarah, to answer your question, I have not ignored it. I've been thinking about it, and I have already kind of dummied 1 or 2 songs that might work in it, and I'm thinking about it. And one of the things that holds me back a little bit is I'm thinking, is he going to make a musical out of every movie he made? It's too much, you know. But
who is that?
Who's
that voice? Who's that voice in your head?
That's a tiny woman in the Bronx, a little shriveled woman who's in the Bronx. Is he going to make every movie? Enough, you know.
Has this woman been in your head a long time?
She's always there.
Yeah, she seems comfortable in there. Vincent from Facebook asks, what do you think Dr. Frankenstein's lab smelled like?
That's a good question. Well, resuscitating dead tissue. Think about it, you know. It must have, stunk a little bit, really, you know.
I would think.
But nobody covered, you know.
Not enough.
Yeah.
Not enough to cause offense.
Yeah.
I have kept you here a long time.
It's been a pleasure.
And
let's be honest, both of us. Would you use a third, a half?
I don't see us losing any of this.
Well, you know, you don't have to because what is it? It's the web, right?
It's the web. This goes out.
Yeah.
And
did you know Chick Webb was a drummer?
Yes, I did.
You did, really?
I knew about Chick Webb, yeah.
Good for you. I'm proud of you.
Well, you know, I started out trying to be a drummer.
Really?
And then I switched over. I didn't have much money, and I bought a drum kit. My parents let me buy this drum kit. And it was such a bad drum kit, I've never met a drummer who knows that manufacturer.
Oh, who was it?
It was called Courtley. Courtley.
I've never heard of Courtley.
No drummer.
Right.
No drummer has heard of Courtley, and I still have the drums. I played them in high school. I played them in college. No offense to Courtley.
Yeah.
I don't think they make drums. I think it's a company that makes an iron lung, and then one day they said, "Let's try drums."
Yeah.
And then they did one, and they said it doesn't work.
Yeah, and you got that one.
I got the Courtley. Yeah. And then I switched to guitar because when I moved out to LA at 20.
Do you still play?
I play guitar. Yeah, I moved out and I realized you can't have a practice. I was paying $380 a month in 1985.
Wow.
Rent a month. And they're not going to let me have a drum kit in my apartment, which means you have to rent a rehearsal space.
Of course.
I'm not going to, I can't afford to do that. So I went to a pawn shop, bought a $90 guitar.
That's great. Good
for you. Got the Mel Bay chord book and taught myself.
That's great. Good for you.
Well,
I knew Charlie Christian.
Oh, really?
When I was a kid.
Yeah.
He was Benny Goodman's. He was a genius. The one I listen to in my car a lot is Django.
Yeah.
I listened to, Stephen Grappelli and Django.
Sure. Well, Django playing a gypsy-style guitar with, and he
was a Belgian gypsy.
Yeah. Who then lost,
he lost a couple of fingers in a
lost
fire.
the fingers, in a fire, a circus fire.
How do you know that?
I have to know a lot.
You're just a baby. How do you know that stuff? Do you know about the automat?
Oh, yes. You put a quarter in and you get a ham sandwich.
Nickels only.
That's what I was doing
Solomon
wrong.
Nickels.
I put a quarter in.
There's no room for a quarter. You know?
Did you go to the automat back in the day?
I went there all the time. We ate at the automat. You asked Carl Reiner about that. He'll talk about the automat ad infinitum.
And loved it, right? You put the nickel in and then you get a...
3 nickels, he'd have a lemon meringue, piece of lemon meringue pie.
Horn and hard art?
Horn and hard art. I'm really proud of you.
See?
I mean, you're really a baby and to know about the automat.
I'm older than you think.
Right.
I'm 77 years old. No, I've had incredible... I've had this completely sandblasted.
Right.
Yeah. I'm an old man.
You probably got Michael Dunn's face.
You think?
Yeah, after they probably gave you... Now, let me ask...
Surgery.
Let me ask you a personal question. Have you ever heard of a running board?
A running board?
Good.
Yes. It's what the gangsters would stand on the side of the running board and shoot the machine gun.
Where was the running board? On what?
The running board was on, like, a Packard would have a running board.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it would have a big running board.
That's pretty goddamn good.
But here's the thing about me.
Running board.
Here's the thing about me. I don't know what I'm supposed to know now. I'm from another era. I'm from the wrong time.
You are.
But I grew up on Jimmy Cagney.
I don't want to worry you, but there were occasions during our interview here that I saw through you to the back wall.
And what did you?
Yeah, I don't know. So you may have some stuff running through you at times that is good or bad, depending. But I did see the wall behind you.
You saw me disappear for a moment.
No, you were there, but I saw the wall right through you. The vague outline of your heart, And it was okay.
This is like I won a contest.
Yeah.
This is an absolute joy. It is an honor. I love you. You've been a big part of my life. You continue.
Yeah.
You have given so much to people through your work, and it made me so happy. I remember when you came on our show, a crowd of people in their 20s.
I know. It was amazing.
Jumped to their feet, screaming. And then you started to walk out, and I grabbed you, and I turned you around, and I said, look at that. I don't see that a lot.
Yeah.
And you gave me a big kiss on the cheek. And then I thought, I can die now. I don't want to die now, but I can go. So this has been just a huge...
You're not even Jewish.
I'm a little Jewish.
Yeah, you might be.
I think I have a Jewish heart.
Did you ask Marty Short? He never answered.
What?
He never responded. You did. I
did. But
in
what,
an opening
what?
retort, you said to Martin Short, I just have one question for you. Are you a Jew?
Yeah.
He never, and there was no, I was waiting for the whole thing, and he never, did he ever answer? He never said whether.
He's keeping his cards very close.
No, he was talking, them.
He's not the Lucky Charms elf.
Them.
He
was doing that. Anne made my late wife made a movie in Ireland, and we part of a movie. And I would go into bars and say, "Them 2 Guinnesses for us," and they no trouble.
You took the time to learn the language.
Yeah, dem. Yeah.
Dem 2 Guinness are for us.
Yeah. It's great. I mean, I really had
I hope you had a good time. This was a blast.
I had a great time.
This was the most fun I've had that I can remember.
This was easy. This wasn't,
Yeah, but
another 2 hours.
Yeah. No, let this man. We're gonna let you go, but
I'm gonna. Carl can get. When can Carl see this? When can people see this on their computers?
What is Carl? Does Carl watch things on his computers?
He does. He's addicted.
Is it all legal stuff? Or
no porn.
Week of the 21st.
21st of what? Which month?
Thank you. I'm impatient with him, too.
Yeah. October 21?
Yes.
Really?
October 21.
That's only about 10 days. Really? It's a short time away.
What are we going to do? Put this on, transfer this to film? No, this is it. Yeah. We got it. We should go out right now. And we can get you guys copies. And then I can actually get you a copy.
Oh, I'd love it. I really would love it.
Yeah.
And especially the part about the automat. The rest of it, I don't give a shit about.
We're only using the automat.
But the automat is
the automat is all we're using. Everything else didn't make.
Right. No.
It was a little didn't quite.
The whole show business thing was.
That's not what people want to hear from you. When people hear Mel Brooks is talking to Conan, they want to hear coin-operated sandwich dispensers.
Right, and running boards. Don't forget Ronnie, you were very good, Ronnie. He knew gangsters on the running
The
board.
best person that ever lived.
Yeah.
Mel Brooks.
I love you guys.
Thank you so much. I do love you.
Bless
Oh,
you.
my God.